There's a killer that brutally beat her little body walking free.
The unsolved murder of 16-year-old Mariah Klutz.
I said, what do you mean Mariah died and they don't want me to know? I was frantic.
Police just revealed how Mariah died, and her family says it was brutal.
When we turned and we looked at her laying there, we were not prepared. Her eyes were black. Her skull was disfigured.
Someone is walking free right now who beat a 16-year-old girl to death. 6 months have passed. Her father has been questioned. Her stepmother has been questioned. 2 primary suspects sit in police files, and still nobody has been arrested. Her name was Mariah Klutz. She would have turned 17 this month. Instead, she's frozen at 16, the age she was when someone caved in her skull in a trailer in Bloomington, Illinois, and walked away like nothing happened. Before we get into how she died, you need to understand who she was. Mariah spent most of her childhood in Florida, raised by an aunt after her mother, fighting her own struggles with addiction, made the decision to let someone else raise her daughter, rather than keep her in an unstable home.
30.
Rachel was never forgotten. She was a part of her life. Everybody loved Rachel. You know what I mean? She loved Mariah enough not to have her in that kind of environment that she grew up in. So even though Rachel was an addict and she was fighting demons herself, she loved Mariah enough to know that she couldn't take care of Mariah, which...
That's not a small thing. That took love. Mariah grew up gentle. Family says she'd stop traffic to move a turtle off the road.
Behind me, like this is a picture of Mariah with a turtle. They cross the roads in Florida, and, she got out, jumped out of the road, out of the car and carried it to the side of the road, so it didn't get ran over. She was that kid,
She wrote affirmations on her bedroom wall.
This is Mariah's actual handwriting. She wrote, "I'm worthy, I'm strong. I attract abundance. I'm confident. Don't say do. I'm humble.
I am worthy. I am strong. I attract abundance." A 16-year-old girl trying to talk herself into a better life. In 2025, she got her wish, or so she thought. Her father had recently been released from incarceration, and Mariah wanted back in.
Change.
She had asked if she could, kind of reunite with her dad. Could she stay up here in Bloomington to get to know him? He had just got back out of prison. She hadn't seen him since then.
At that point, Mariah moved into a trailer with her father, Michael, his girlfriend, Caitlin, and their 3-year-old daughter. And at first, everything seemed...
She moved into his trailer, along with his girlfriend and their toddler. For a few months, it looked like a fresh start. Then, the excitement wore off. Family says she started talking about broken promises.
She would always just tell us, that she was unhappy, that it wasn't what she was expecting it to be, that, her dad would continuously break promises, and, she was just in a very down and depressed time.
About wanting to go back to Florida. About feeling like something in that house wasn't right. She never made it out.
And we got to the trailer and we almost got all the way up the stairs before the police came pouring out the door saying, "This is a crime scene, you got to get out."
When they arrived to the trailer, it was being treated as a crime scene. But there were some notable people missing.
On the morning of February 7th, a 911 call came from that trailer. By the time anyone from Mariah's extended family arrived, less than an hour later, police were already treating it as a crime scene. There was no father waiting outside. No stepmother. No explanation. Just officers at the door saying, "Get back. This is a crime scene." And then the excuses started. This is where the story stops being sad and starts being suspicious. Claim 1, nothing happened. She was fine. That was the first thing family says they were told, that there wasn't a mark on her. But when they saw her body at the funeral home days later, they counted over 20 separate injuries on her face and skull alone.
Mariah's father says he's not going to comment on any of it. But according to her nana and aunts, there have been multiple stories.
We heard so many stories, like they told us, somebody beat her up a few days ago. I mean, this came weeks later. She died of a drug overdose. And I said, Mariah, don't do drugs like that.
Black eyes, gashes, a forehead that didn't sit right. That's not fine. That's not consistent with anything except violence. Claim 2, it was drugs.
Mariah's father says he's not going to comment on any of it, but according to her nana and aunts, there have been multiple stories.
We heard so many stories like they told us, somebody beat her up a few days ago. I mean, this came weeks later. She died of a drug overdose. And I said, Mariah, don't do drugs like that. Like, what?
They were saying like her vape was laced with fentanyl. I mean, these were just the things that, you know, the parents in the home with her were telling.
Someone in that house floated the idea that her vape had been laced, that she'd overdosed. Convenient, since overdoses don't always demand an investigation the way a beating does. But when the toxicology results came back, there were no street drugs in her system at all.
Insight into what was in Mariah's system at the time of her death. And the spoiler alert is that there were no hard drugs. She was found to have amphetamine, which is otherwise known as Adderall, in her system. This is a drug that's used to treat ADHD. She was also found
just prescribed medication, Adderall and 2 SSRIs, at levels consistent with a diagnosis, not an overdose. Claim 3, she'd had problems before. Down in Florida, implying this wasn't out of character, except nobody could produce a single detail to back that up. No records, no incident, just a vague reference dropped in an interview, then walked back the moment it was pressed. Each excuse collapsed the moment it touched evidence, and the evidence, when it finally came, was devastating. Nearly 6 months to the day after Mariah died, the coroner released preliminary findings. Cause of death, subdural hematoma, and multiple blunt force injuries to the head and neck, sustained during what's officially described as an altercation.
The Clean County Coroner's Office has released additional preliminary findings. The immediate cause of death has been determined to be subdural hematoma and multiple blunt injuries of the head and neck due to an altercation. Contributing factors include amphetamine, sertraline, and fluoxetine intoxication. The time frame from the onset of injuries to death was noted as minutes. The manner of death was ruled as homicide. This is
manner of death, homicide. Time between the injuries and death minutes.
Expert. So while I was on the phone with the Bloomington police officer, I asked what all this meant. How soon after Mariah was physically attacked did she die?
Minutes. That means whoever did this stood over her while it happened. That means someone in that trailer knows exactly what those final minutes looked like and has said nothing for half a year. Here's the detail that should stop you cold. A search warrant executed at the trailer the day after Mariah died specifically requested any item capable of inflicting blunt force trauma.
The way Mariah was killed. Now we enhanced the image, and here's what we can take from it. The search warrant was issued on February 8th. That's one day after Mariah's death. It gives specifics about what detectives may collect as possible evidence, and this part is straight from the warrant. And if found,
investigators knew how she died within 24 hours. The public wouldn't know for 6 months. So why the silence? Why no arrest when, by every account, there were only 4 people in that home the night she died? Mariah, a toddler too young to be a suspect, her father, and his girlfriend. 2 adults. That's the entire suspect pool police have to work with, and still nothing.
An arrest to be made when there was only 4 people in that home, you know, 1 being Mariah dead, 1 a child, and 2 grown adults.
Police won't.
A retired homicide detective who reviewed the case says there are only 2 real explanations for a delay like this.
Years.
Well, it's been my experience that 2 things are going on. One of 2 things. One, they're trying to build a case and they don't want to release any information that would tip off the person they're building a case against, or they have nothing. You know, it's one of 2 things. They're either keeping their cards close to the vest because they're building a case on someone, or they don't have a lot.
I've been turned down before, but I wanted to try again. So my team reached out to Bloomington PD and the medical examiner. We wanted our hands on the 911 call, the autopsy report, and any sort of new information they could give us. And nothing. Our Freedom of Information Act request was completely denied. We were told if details of an investigation are made public prematurely, it can compromise the integrity of the process. Suspects or individuals involved may be alerted, potentially destroying evidence or fleeing from law enforcement, making them more difficult to identify or apprehend them. By keeping information confidential, investigators can maintain the element of surprise and increase the likelihood of a successful resolution. Do you have any explanation for why I can't get those?
None. None whatsoever. I mean, I can tell you that sometimes in police investigations, because I dealt with FOIA requests all the time, you could get away with saying ongoing investigation for a while, but after a while, you got to give out the information that's requested. Freedom of Information Act 1974, you have to give out the information.
Either investigators are building an airtight case and deliberately staying silent to avoid tipping off the person they're targeting, or they simply don't have enough yet to move. Both are possible here. But 6 months of silence in a case with a search warrant issued one day after the murder starts to feel less like patience and less like protocol, and more like something has stalled. What we know for certain is this. A 16-year-old girl who wrote, "I am strong," on her bedroom wall was beaten to death in a home she'd fought to be part of. Her family has been told, off the record, that investigators know who did it.
This every day has consumed me because I was calling the police every day, and then it went to a few times, and I still call Detective Brian twice a week because I get the same thing. You know who did it. We know who did it. And I said to him, why isn't anybody arrested?
And you know, if this is an isolated instance like the police say that it was, why has it took 6 months for an arrest to be made when there was only 4 people in that home? You know, one being Mariah dead, one a child, and 2 grown adults.
Police won't confirm who was in the trailer at the time Mariah died, but we do know there were only 4 people who lived there. Mariah, her 3-year-old sister, her father Michael, and his girlfriend Caitlin. Police won't release the 911 call, but Mariah's aunts believe it was Caitlin who made the call. According to Mariah's dad, he's still hoping for police updates.
I have tried. I have reached out to them, and they haven't really said much to me, you know. I mean, I've called the coroner, you know, they just ain't giving.
And still, that person has not been named, has not been charged, has not been arrested. Mariah deserved better than silence. She deserved better than excuses that fell apart the moment anyone looked closely. Her family isn't asking for sympathy anymore. They're asking for an arrest. And until that happens, this isn't a cold case. It's an open wound, and somewhere out there, the person responsible is still walking free.
And we need answers. She needs answers. Will we ever know truly, like, her last minutes of her life? We hope we can find out. We hope there will be answers. We hope there will be an arrest. But at the end of the day, she deserves justice, and her story deserves to be heard and told, and the truth deserves to be known.
That's the bottom line here. There's a 16-year-old girl who police say was murdered, and so far, her killer has